You ever lured in a deer with a bicycle? I hadn't either until this hunt. So this hunt happened October 19th this past year. And it was weird, to be honest with you. So I set up this tree in a fence line right behind my dad's house. A small, tiny little oak tree that sits right in the fence line. There's not many trees to get in the fence line, so this was all I had to work with. So I'd gone in August and prepped the tree, climbed it. I was only 2 sticks high. I trimmed my limbs out. I actually had some pretty good cover in there. So my goal was with this hunt was to hunt out of this tiny little tree and try to kill a doe out of it from the saddle. So the hunt actually worked out pretty well. I got set up in the tree. Several does come out into the field. A bunch of does, actually, a bunch of big mature does. The only problem was they were about 100 yards away until they saw my e-bike parked in the fence line. And that's when things got interesting. So check it out.
Alright, note to self, make sure camera is recording before doing opening interview. But anyway, I rode the bike over here this evening. There was already deer out in the field right underneath this tree. I had already set up this tree earlier in the day, just for a doe mission this evening. And so I rode the bike around the field a couple times. I just made sure that they saw me. And then I rode back out the way I came, and the deer just trotted off down in the woods. So I'm 100% sure that they'll be back. But this is a pretty unique setup. I'm only about 10 feet off the ground in a tiny little oak tree in this fence row. And nobody's ever sat in this tree before. And I just like to hop around to these different little spots like this just to keep the deer guessing. You know, this property I've hunted my whole life, so they kind of figure out over the years where you like to sit. So I like to just sit in random trees and take them by surprise. So that's the plan tonight. We've got a nice field here behind us. Hardwoods over here to my left where they bed. So I've killed a pile of deer right here in this corner. So hopefully a big doe will come out tonight, and we can get to try the new gearhead bow out. That would be fun. So that's the goal for this evening, is just to shoot a big doe. There's no expectation of a buck coming out, even though it could happen. But we're just gonna have fun, and we'll see what happens tonight.
It wasn't long after the button bucks entered the field, and here comes the whole train of does, and there is a bunch of them. So it's right about now they realize my bike is parked in the fence line. So if you notice, I have to bring the bow over the bridge to prepare for a weak side shot. So I just did it nice and slow while keeping eyes on the deer. So at this point, the deer are about 40 yards and closing in. And if you've ever tried to self-film in a tiny little tree with about 15 deer in the field, it's not exactly an easy thing to do. But these deer are completely focused on my bike that's parked about 30 yards from me, and they're just walking that way right now. Now, if I wasn't self-filming, I'd probably already be at full draw, ready to go. But because I'm self-filming, it compounds everything that I'm doing and makes it a whole lot more difficult. So the deer keep feeding my way and getting closer and closer, but don't let them feeding fool you. They are on full alert. They are really interested in this bike that's parked in the fence line, and they're coming to check it out. So I range the big doe at 32 yards. She's feeding, she's acts like she's calm, and I purposely aim low right up the leg bone just because I know that she's going to duck, but I did not expect this to happen.
Well, that was a big swing and a miss. So if you're wondering why those deer came from 90 yards to 32, it's because they saw my bicycle sitting in the fence row and they had to come check it out. So there was 13 deer that came out into this field. A bunch of big does. They were all does, but there were several of them that were huge. But they were out there at 90 yards feeding away from me. I thought they were just going to cross the field and keep going. But they saw my bike sitting over there and they came over to check it out. They got to 32 yards and the one kind of saw me and then turned, and then the other one didn't know what was going on. So she came up to check the bike out. She turned back and was feeding and was calm, or what I thought was calm. But when I squeezed that shot off, she completely ducked it. It went right over her back.
So let's talk about this shot for a minute. So these deer come in, they were obviously alert. They had seen my bike parked in the fence line, and you know, they worked their way up there and they'd kind of settled down a little bit. And at 32 yards, I thought if I aim just a little bit low, I should be okay and be able to get an arrow into this doe. So I'll show you on the slow-mo here. The red mark is my aim point, with the yellow being my intended impact. I executed the shot, arrow flew perfectly right where I wanted to, and as you can see, this doe completely gets out of the way before the arrow even gets there. So this was a fun hunt. I got to see a lot of deer. I got to shoot at a deer with the new gearhead bow, which that bow is awesome. I'm going to be doing a review on it here pretty soon, but it just goes to show that you can hunt in tiny little trees in a spot that nobody else has really hunted. And that's what's nice about the saddle, is I was able to get up in that tiny little tree. And I feel like if I wasn't self-filming, I probably would have had a little bit better chance. It's just a lot of eyes and a lot of movement to try to film that, but I got to try to film it. That's part of the fun. So it was a fun hunt. Obviously didn't get anything, but I got to sling an arrow, and that's always fun.